Republicans are increasingly coalescing around former President Donald Trump, even as the likely GOP presidential nominee continues to use racist and incendiary language.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them.
From circulating baseless conspiracies about his presidential rivals to demonizing immigrants, Trump's rhetoric has reshaped the party's base. White House correspondent Laura Barone-Lopez has been covering this, and she joins me now. Good to see you, Laura.
Good to be here.
So when we talk about the rhetoric, what kind of language are we talking about? What has Mr. Trump been saying on the campaign so far?
So in addition to what we just heard, Amna, the former president repeatedly saying that migrants are poisoning the blood of the country, which historians of Nazi Germany point out is echoing Adolf Hitler's language. In addition to that, he's also deployed racist tactics against his chief rival, Nikki Haley, the last woman standing against him, questioning her citizenship, her American citizenship. On Truth Social, he reposted an account, the Gateway Pundit, that questioned whether or not she was eligible to be the president of the United States and questioned her American bona fides. And then he also has repeatedly, Amna, used her birth name, but mispronounced it, saying Nikki Nimrata Haley when talking about her. And so this isn't the first time that the president has deployed tactics like that. You'll remember that he repeatedly questioned former President Barack Obama's citizenship and repeatedly asked for his birth certificate and called him Barack Hussein Obama over and over again.
This is all, as you mentioned, part of his presidential campaign. Is there a political strategy behind all of this?
There is a playbook that has been used by Republican politicians in the past that appeals to fears of the other, fears of brown and black people. We saw it used by Richard Nixon. We've seen it used by Ronald Reagan. And so this is something that isn't necessarily new to the Republican Party, but I spoke to Ian Haney Lopez, who is from UC Berkeley, and he's a professor of race and constitutional law, and he explained how dog whistle politics animates American voters.
What's happening with dog whistle politics is you have these politicians who are strategically, intentionally, purposefully seeking to exploit people's unconscious vulnerability by saying welfare queen, illegal alien, terrorist, gangbanger, terms that they know will trigger unconscious racist views, but which they can also say, hey, I didn't say anything racist. I didn't use a racial epithet. I didn't mention skin color.
Professor Lopez added that dog whistle politics is effective because it animates fear and anger among voters. And when voters become fearful or angry, they don't really listen to any other arguments.
So tell us more about those voters. How is this rhetoric and this language resonating among those Republican voters?
I spoke to Denver Riggleman, a former GOP congressman from Virginia, and he said that these types of racist appeals and nativism from Trump and from other Republicans is essentially infecting the Republican voting base. And then Sarah Longwell, a Republican pollster, shared some responses that she's been getting in her focus groups. And specifically in this recent focus group, she was speaking to two-time Trump voters, which shows that Republican voters are repeating Trump's dog whistles when they're talking about some of the other candidates that were running in the primary, such as Vivek Ramaswamy.
I'm sorry, I'm not being prejudiced, guys, but I don't like his name. I don't like where he came from. After 9/11, I still harbor a lot of hard feelings about that.
No offense to any women out there. I just feel like it's a man's job. They're going to make tough decisions that can't have any emotions involved. They're the commander-in-chief. They have that red button at their disposal at all times.
In that last one, we heard some sexism directed at Nikki Haley. And so, again, Republican voters repeating some of the same sexist rhetoric used by former President Donald Trump.
So, Laura, we're talking about the man who's the likely presumptive GOP nominee. What does all of this mean for the Republican Party and also for the country moving forward?
Well, I want to take a step back, Amna, because in 2012, the Republican National Committee, after that presidential election and their losses there, decided that they needed to be a more inclusive party. They issued an autopsy report that said that they were losing young voters, that minorities thought that their party didn't want them in the country. But then when Donald Trump won in 2016, he essentially sent the party down a totally different path, and it basically convinced the Republican Party that he could issue a playbook of dog whistle politics and win. I asked Professor Lopez what impact that could have on the larger country.
The tragedy is that Republican leadership and also important media outlets like Fox News have convinced a significant portion of Americans that their best future depends on rejecting and indeed actively fighting against a multiracial democracy. But we're already a multiracial society. What we stand to lose then is our democracy and a society that works for all of us.
So even though Trump's playbook isn't new, Amna, Professor Ian Haney-Lopez said that relentless rhetoric has essentially reshaped the entire Republican voting base.
White House correspondent Laura Barone Lopez. Laura, thank you for that reporting.
Thank you.